Right, the ball's hitting McCovey Cove in the water. McCovey Cove wishes it was that clear, by the way. It's another episode of Splash It. I'm FP Santangelo, your friend. And your other friend on this show, Susan Slusser, joins us from the winter meetings in Orlando. Susan, you came over from London to the winter meetings. I'm back in San Francisco. We're back in the USA. Any news today? I guess the number one thing I want to ask you, and we've been talking about this, did you finally meet Tony Vitello?
I finally met Tony Vitello. And he is, I think you've said, like, first of all, total charm, but he's very funny. So he was cracking loads of jokes today, which, you know what? This is the time of year. It's great. Like, get the temperature right away, get everyone, kind of like, he's won all the reporters over. So he's already done the hard part.
Well, that's good. Well, we'll see what happens when they lose like 5 in a row, but I'm sure he's going to be the same. They're 0-0 right now. What's the latest news? Like, this is going to be your show today. You're at the winter meetings. This is a big deal. What's the latest news on the Giants? What'd you hear today?
Well, it's really interesting. The Giants have so many needs, right? And they've got to fill 2 starting spots in the rotation. They've got, for my money, they need to get another big bat who's also a good defensive outfielder. That's a pretty big ask right there. And a bunch of other things. Do they need a closer? Maybe upgrade at second base? There's a bunch of things, and we kept hearing like maybe a little bit of a limited budget. Greg Johnson told me in a Q&A I did a month ago, we don't want to give out 9-figure salaries or long-term deals, especially to starters. The Athletic reported that they were out on EMI already. I keep hearing that they've checked in on all of these big names and that they're not necessarily out. So, it's really hard to say right now. But I like the fact that they are checking in on all of those guys, even if it's just due diligence, which I said last week. Of course they're going to do their due diligence and kick the tires on everybody. The fact that certainly there are a lot of agents that feel like the Giants are still in on some big name guys, and some reporters hearing that the Giants could even be a team that lands a big name starter. I'd be a little surprised given what we've been hearing about the budget, but they are certainly considering everything. And then when we met with Buster Posey today and Zach Manassian, sort of the little, every day at the winter meetings, you meet with the front office, and Tony Vitello was there too for all of this today. We asked, these budget limitations, how much of an impact is that? Greg talked about the 9-figure deals, and Buster said, you know what, this ownership, when we went to them last year with a Devers deal, he said, well, he said they didn't blink. And then he went, they maybe blinked a little bit, but we talked to them, and, they understood what we're trying to do and why it was important. And they were willing to pick up that contract, obviously huge deal, huge contract. So I think what the front office feels like is that ownership has their back. So if they went to them with, say, let's say Framber Valdez, I think they feel like if they presented it in the right terms and said, this is the guy that we need, he's going to take us to the next level, this is why we like him so much, I think they feel like ownership would do whatever. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I do think that they feel like we should talk to everybody, and if there's somebody we really, really want, and if it's a deal we feel like is fair, we've got a shot maybe with ownership going like, hey, well, we didn't want to do this, but for this guy, we understand why we might want to. Now, I still think, look, I'm looking at their rotation. I go, Webb, you've got a true number one. Robbie Ray, you've got these are 2 frontline starters you've got already. I'm fine with a guy who's more of a traditional number 3 guy, somebody who could come in on a 2 or 3 year deal, a Chris Bassett, Zach Gallen would be, really ideal. And I do think they're in on him, even though, he's a little bit coming off of a down year. He finished strong. Someone like that, I think, would be fine. I don't think you have to go out and get MI, who's something of an unknown too, talent, even though the great talent and a young guy. And I don't think you need to be in on Valdez. But what they need, FP, they need a big bat. They need a great defensive outfielder who can also hit. There's only a handful of them. I don't think that they're going to get Tucker. I'm not sure they're even pursuing Tucker. I think he's definitely outside the price range because that's going to be 400 million plus. But a Cody Bellinger, if I'm then that's the kind of guy I'm going, or trade for somebody, that to me should be their priority right now, is a big bat, good defensive outfielder.
Well, I mean, a couple of things we know about Buster Posey so far, that he keeps things close to the vest. And it's good business, right? I'm not gonna show my cards. I might even do an okey doke and say, we're not going to sign a guy for an 8-figure deal or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden it's done. We learned that with Willy Adames. We learned that with Rafael Devers, like you said. And it's kind of good business practice not to show your cards. Like, they're going to give you guys just enough so you have something to go right. But like what they're telling you and what's going on behind the scenes, and I think Giants fans get all upset because they read an article somewhere here or there and it says this, but like, if I'm doing business and I'm trying to make my team better, I'm not showing you my cards, man, because then the other people see it and it jacks up the price. And if we're not in on this guy, maybe we can sneak around the back door and get that guy, whoever it is. So I kind of like this philosophy with Buster. I like being surprised. And also, when you go to ownership as a front office and you say, we want this guy and this is how much going to cost, you really have to trust the people that are making those decisions. If I'm writing the check, and I think Greg Johnson and ownership trust Buster Posey and Zach Manassian and the front office that is the Giants based on the deals they've done already, now it's way easier to say, okay, I'm going to sign that check and we're going to sign this guy because I trust you guys to make good decisions. Where maybe in the past there was some weird decisions made. And then as an ownership, if you come to me, I don't have confidence in you anymore, like, to make those decisions. And we won't say who or names, but there, maybe with the last regime, there were some hmms. So like, if you're coming to me and I don't have confidence in you, but right now you're Buster Posey, you're a world champion, Hall of Famer. You've shown that you know what you're doing. And if you come to me with like a big gulp contract, like, oh my God, I believe that this is going to make our team better. So I kind of like the strategy involved right now. And if I was ever a front office guy, I wouldn't say anything to the media. I wouldn't say anything other than what's in that hotel room and what we're trying to do. And let's just give them just enough so they can do their jobs.
Well, I will say that last year, Buster's first year, obviously in the job, he kind of said right away when everybody was talking about Roki Sasaki, and he was like, "Yeah, absolutely, we're going after him." I don't know if necessarily there's a downside to that. You do want to signal to your fan base that you are in on big name guys. Now, that has bit the Giants in the butt, obviously, in the past. They missed out on a lot of the biggest biggest free agent names. Judge, Harper, etc.
Which is why you keep it close to the vest and don't get it all out there.
I disagree. I would rather have my fan base know that we missed out, but we made every possible attempt to get a guy than to even question that we maybe didn't go after him. I think it's more important for them, for teams to signal to their fan base, we are willing to make these financial sacrifices for this to be the best team possible, rather than keeping it secret just to avoid going like, oh, we missed out again. You know what? If you miss out, like 28 other teams also missed out, right? Well, they're probably not all going after him, but only one team is going to wind up with Shohei Ohtani. It was always going to be the Dodgers. That was pretty apparent after the fact. But the Giants made a good faith effort, I think. I mean, they get slammed for whatever they do. Either way, they're going to get slammed. So show you're like, I think they should. If it's a big name, I think there's really little downside to saying. I think the fans want to know.
Well, I mean, those are great points. And the only pushback I'll give you that every Giants fans watching this has had a therapist and a couch based on all the bridesmaids that have almost signed with the Giants, including some bad tweets by big reporters. So we're all kind of gun shy to that. And we all kind of have PTSD on the fact that there's been so many close calls that maybe that's just a me thing and I'm projecting right now. I'd rather not know than get all excited and then all of a sudden have the rug pulled out from under me. But wait, however you get it done, you get it done. Whatever your style is, your style. I kind of like keeping things close to the vest versus it's all out there for everybody to know. Bryce Eldridge, a lot of talk about Bryce Eldridge. Are the Giants, is he on the market? Are the Giants going to trade him? Are they shopping around? Personally, before I throw it to you, because you're there, boots on the ground, when you talk about anybody in any organization, I don't think there's any untouchables. Because if you throw something out there and somebody bites and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, like everybody, there shouldn't be any untouchables in an organization. It doesn't mean you're going to trade that guy. It doesn't mean you're going to do that deal, but why not just see what's out there?
Well, I mean, FP, most top prospects do not wind up being everyday big league players. I mean, the odds are against it. It's tough to make the big leagues. When you look at the first round draft picks, it's not like some other sports. It's not an automatic. You're just going to wind up being a big league player and a regular. It doesn't happen like that. Now, you also don't want to be the guy that trades, Max Fried. You like there are some. So every once in a while, there's a big whoopsie, right? Fernando Tatis Jr. You don't want to be that guy, but you have to take risks. And prospects are really pretty much unknown until they turn into big league regulars, and then that's a very different dynamic. You can sell your top prospect. Teams romanticize top prospects. They want they all look at Bryce Eldridge and they go, "Oh, this is a guy who's going to hit 50 home runs and look at the swing." We don't know. We don't know yet. I think everybody overvalues their own prospects. And I think that if you can get a huge return in exchange for a good prospect, I like the idea of doing that. Now, look, we've got two great examples right in front of us of reasons why not to. Buster Posey was the Giants' top prospect, and the number 2 back then was Madison Bumgarner. Giants pretty wise not to move either of them in a deal. But Marco Luciano was just dumped a couple days ago for nothing. And for years, he was untouchable, and now gone. Joey Bart, they get almost nothing for Joey Bart. Many of their top prospects the last few years have either been gone through major injuries and are no longer really factors, or just didn't quite pan out the way that was expected for a whole different number of reasons. That said, the system has been, as a digression, the system as a whole, I think, has been underrated because the Giants have produced a lot of really good players, just not the guys who were expected to be but Logan Webb, Camilo Doval, Randy Rodriguez, Landon Root, like there are all sorts of good names and good players that they have produced. Patrick Bailey obviously was a first round pick. Elliot Ramos is obviously a first round pick. These guys are all regulars and contributors. So I am not in any way slamming the development or whatever, but I just feel like if you can get a pretty much a sure thing on the big league level for somebody who's not a sure thing, I'm in favor, generally speaking, of doing it.
Yeah, we agree a 1,000,000% on that.
Yeah. And anyway, so we all sort of asked around this question today with Buster Posey, and I asked Buster if he has a philosophy on whether he prefers to, as some teams do. The Tigers for a long time held on to all their top guys. That worked. A lot of teams trade their top guys. Padres, that works. There's no right or wrong way. So I asked if he has a philosophy, and he basically said, he's in favor of doing whatever the move is that will help the team the most, which is exactly, the right answer. A little frustrating when we're trying to figure out, are you going to trade Bryce or not? But he also he spent a long time complimenting Bryce Eldridge and explaining how he and Rafael Devers could both, be on the roster at the same time, which is pretty simple. Bryce Eldridge pretty much DH is essentially what it boils down to. So, they don't have to trade him. But the other part of this to me that won't come as a surprise to you, FP, is when you've got he's set profiles as such a special hitter, but he doesn't really have a position. For me, that also lessens his value a little bit. I would rather have and I love Bryce Eldridge, and he's a fantastic guy, absolutely top notch. But I think even more so that makes him somebody that if I were a general manager, thank goodness I'm not, I'd just have a team of great talkers who can't play baseball. But I would be a little bit more inclined to trade somebody who is maybe not quite as versatile.
He doesn't have a position. He's got Ron Washington as his infield coach. He's going to be a Gold Glover in a year. I mean, I know we have that for
Where
later in the show, but
can he play right field?
since it's a natural segue, like we're going to talk about Jeff Kent and Barry Bonds in a second. We were going to talk about Wash later, but like since it's a natural segue right now, like he's one of the best coaches I ever had. End of my career in Oakland, he was teaching me things about second base, a position I played my whole life that I'd never even heard of before. Like for instance, a ball to your right, instead of like working to get around it and fielding it in front of you and throwing on the run, just open up. Like I'm going to demonstrate. Just open up and backhand it this way, so you didn't have to get all the way around it and then throw across your body. Little things around the bag, little things about double play turns, double play feeds, stuff I'd never heard in my life that made the position so much easier. And you know all the names in the development, whether it's Ozzie Albies or even Freddie Freeman at first base in Atlanta, all the guys, Marcus Semien with the A's that just couldn't field. So now you add a guy that's a manager, and we'll talk about the influence that he'll have with Tony Vitello, and a guy that's just cool as hell and gets it, but also is a hard worker. A lot of times in Major League Baseball, you have coaches that stop coaching because it's the Major League level. And Wash is out there every day, early, doing all the drills. And the way he communicates and the way he implements his philosophies to you, whatever it is, it just sinks in quickly, and it's not hard. And he's just, I got so excited when I saw he was going to be here. Number one, for selfish reasons. I love him and I miss him. And whenever our travels connected and he was the manager of this team or that team or the infield coach, I'd always go say hi to him. But one of the biggest influences in my career, and it was almost too late. It was the last year of my Major League career. And I'm like, I used to joke with him all the time, like, Wash, where have you been all my life? Like, I wish I would have had all this stuff. So along with Bryce Eldridge and Rafael Devers at first base, like he has a chance to make them really good. And, you know, I'm joking about Gold Glove, but why not? To me, and I'll let you talk here, like to me, defense, like offense has a ceiling. It's God-given. Yeah, just hold on a second. Offense has a ceiling. It's God-given. You can work your ass off in the cage, and you can only get so far. Defense is an attitude and a work ethic and wanting to do it. And like a guy like Wade Boggs that made 50 errors in the minor leagues became a really good third baseman because he worked at it. So now you've got guys that know what they're doing, can implement it, and with work ethic, it's like even Adames, who at times last year would short arm baseballs and double pump with his glove and get off rhythm with his legs. Chappie, you just leave alone. But like, so this is going to influence the infield defense a lot. And I think Bryce Eldridge, while you say doesn't have a position, and I kind of agree with you as we talk right now and as we speak, but with Ron Washington there, the influence is going to be unbelievable. Okay, I'm done. You go.
Okay, well, okay, great. Ron Washington could turn Eldridge into a phenomenal first baseman. Rafael Devers is still there, and he's Rafael Devers, and I think he's going to be a better first baseman than Eldridge because he was an okay Major League third baseman, and he barely played any first base last year, and looked pretty good. So I think he's only going to get better, and he's going to be working with Wash. I think he's going to be an outstanding first baseman, honestly. If Ron Washington could turn Bryce Eldridge into an outstanding right fielder somehow, problem solved. That's the position they need. It's kind of almost too bad. I mean, I love the Devers deal.
Feet are
I
too
still
big.
think it was brilliant. It came out of nowhere, but it's kind of left Eldridge without an everyday spot. And a 21-year-old DH, that's not ideal. I do think he could be a good first baseman. I do. I don't doubt that. JT Snow has talked extensively, including here on our show, about how he thinks that Bryce Eldridge has improved and the big strides he's taken and how much more he can and will improve. So I do think that that's the reason I feel like he doesn't have a position is because of Devers, not really because of Bryce Eldridge. So, yeah, but a little bit hyperbolic with my he doesn't have a position stance. That's not really what I feel like, but I think he's blocked. I think he's mostly blocked by Devers. So, hey, do they trade Devers? I don't see that happening, but I wouldn't do that. What they need though is they need a big bat, good fielding right field or center fielder. Either of those things I think would be fantastic, and I think should be their top priority because the offense is what really limited this team last year.
All right. Well, I'm going to need a scoop out of you soon. And hopefully tomorrow we find out about the coaching staff for the Giants, the rest of the coaching staff for the Giants. But we got to talk about the Hall of Fame. Hey, we got to talk about Jeff Kent and Barry Bonds. And Jeff is in, Barry's not. Your thoughts on that? I have my own thoughts on that, but I want to let you go first because I was talking so much a minute ago. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, what else is new? No.
That's why I drink this right here, a little coffee as we go.
Maybe slow down. You know, I never know how to approach some of the Hall of Fame questions because I'm a little bit too close to it. I was on the Eras committee the first time Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens were up before the committee. I'm on the ballot committee that formulates the ballot for the Eras committees. Both jobs I take extremely seriously and really enjoy. And we're asked not to speak about the inner workings of any of the committees for obvious reasons. I mean, this is stuff where there are a lot of people involved. We all take it very seriously, but some of it's can be a little bit sensitive, especially for the Hall. I get that, and there's nothing more sensitive than sort of the steroid subject. But before I was ever on any of these committees, I always said, and I continue to say, we will know how the Hall of Fame really feels about Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds when they go before the Eras committee. And so far they are 0 for 2, and the Hall has instituted changes in eligibility that essentially will make it impossible for either of them to get in. Certainly for the near future. Look, any of these rules can change at any time. They've changed rules. All it takes is different people involved or a different stance on the steroid era in general, and things could certainly change. Who knows? But Bonds now, because he did not get 5 votes yesterday, will not be eligible the next time in 3 years when this Eras committee meets again. And if he doesn't get 5 votes, at least 5 votes that time, he won't be back on ever. Well, ever is again, whatever, loosely under these rules, he would not get back in. So those rules could potentially change in the future. Jeff Kent, I love it when anyone gets into the Hall of Fame. I feel like this era in particular is very underrepresented, and I feel very, very strongly that second base is underrepresented. Lou Whitaker is still not in. Bobby Grich is still not in. These are very good candidates. So I love that a second baseman who Jeff Kent is not only the all-time leading home run hitter among second basemen, he's the leading home run hitter among middle infielders because he has hit more than any shortstop. So very deserving. I covered him as a backup in Sacramento and a little bit in San Francisco. And I always enjoyed my interactions with him. I know he had a reputation as being kind of gruff and difficult at times, but I thought he was really interesting to talk to and pretty accommodating. I thought that always got a little overblown. And watching Bonds and Kent in that lineup back to back was for a baseball fan, for a baseball reporter, for anybody that loves baseball, that was, borderline surreal. That was like one of the greatest combinations of all time. Just flat out amazing.
So I'm glad that Jeff got in. He was a good teammate. He helped me out a lot the year I played with him. We used to joke that he had 3 different personalities: JK, Chuckles, and Mikey. JK was the guy that sat in his locker and didn't say anything. Chuckles was when he had 3 hits, and Mikey is when he was pissed off and you had to stay away from him. So he had like 3 different personalities that we used to joke about. But he gave me a great hitting tip one day. And he said, I noticed you did something last at-bat. You fouled a pitch off, and then you took the same pitch right down the middle. And he said, if you foul a pitch off, don't get away from your game plan. If that's the pitch you were sitting on, stay on that pitch, because the pitcher is going to think that you're switching to another pitch, and he's going to double up on that pitch. I can't tell you how many hits I got that year. And this was toward the end of my career, where if I did foul a pitch off, I would stay on that pitch and I'd get it again. So I'd go to him like, JK, that's great, man. Thank you so much. So he was a good teammate. You just had to know when to approach him. And the dynamic between him and Barry was like two little kids trying to outdo each other. Like if Jeff had 2 rows on the plane, Barry had to have 3. If Barry was 5 minutes late for stretching, Jeff would be 6 minutes late for stretching, because there was always that ego dynamic between those two, which I think made them better a lot. I think they pushed each other in different ways. You couldn't have had 2 more guys. And if this, I apologize, if this doesn't make sense, that were polar opposite, but the same. Like they came from different backgrounds. They were different people, but when it came to being great and wanting to be great, they were equal in that sense, and they pushed each other and they made each other better. I knew Jeff when he was 18 at Cal Berkeley. I was a sophomore playing baseball at Cal Berkeley. I came back for my sophomore year, and they recruited this shortstop from Long Beach who was a cowboy. Still don't get the cowboy from Long Beach.
I'm still confused. We're all confused about
I still don't get that whole thing. But and Jeff, when he was 18, was tough, man. He was like, he didn't care what anybody thought about him. He was super cocky. He wasn't well liked, if I'm being honest, as an 18-year-old freshman at Cal Berkeley. So I was supposed to take over at shortstop, and he came in, and he was playing shortstop and throwing balls in the stands. He made like 15, 20 errors in fall ball. I had a great fall ball, and it came to opening day, and he was starting at shortstop, and I was back on the bench my sophomore year. So after about 12 games, I went and talked to Bob Milano, the head coach there, and I said, do you see me playing here? Because whatever. And do you see me playing past Cal? And he said, no, I don't. Very honest. He said, I want you to use your scholarship for a great education. I said, thanks. You can have my scholarship. I'm transferring. But now the point of that story is I get to say I got beat out by a Hall of Famer. So that's pretty cool. The Hall of Famer beat me out at shortstop in college.
I mean, yeah, I'd take it. Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, it really, it's deserving. It just looks so weird, right? You look at those teams and you go like, well, obviously both of those guys should be in. It's like the steroid era. I feel like there should be a better solution for dealing with the steroid era. And, Kent was one of the guys who was very vocally in favor of testing kind of earlier than other guys. He was very vocal anti-cheater. I think that probably helped him with the committee too, along with all his. I mean, he got in for obviously baseball accomplishment reasons, but he always was one of those guys. Like I covered Frank Thomas. Frank Thomas was the same way. These were guys who pretty early on were saying, "Hey, like we've got a problem here." Baseball was slow to respond to that. I think that the fact that some of the architects of the game and the people who were the leaders of the game in that era are in the Hall of Fame after not taking some steps that would have maybe ended the steroid era a little earlier. I feel like maybe holding just 2 people accountable for it is a little bit is potentially a little bit unfair. We all wrestle with it, right? Like we all wrestle with it, but
I don't.
The Hall of Fame it's a museum and it's a shrine to the game's greats. And love him or hate him, Barry Bonds was the greatest player probably ever. So it's just it's all strange, but good for Jeff Kent. And you know what? It's fun to see somebody who's had that reputation who's like, I'm tough and I've got this edge. And he's been so emotional these past 2 days. I swear every time John Shea asks him a question, he started crying. Like, who are you, Jeff Kent?
That might be Mikey. I'm not sure.
That was Mikey. Who's Chucky?
I gotta speak about Barry. And I did a Giants thing at the ballpark yesterday, and one of the questions I got from the people at the ballpark was what I thought about Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame. They said it's going to happen at 4:00 today. And I've said this publicly, and it's probably controversial, but I don't think the Hall of Fame is the Hall of Fame until Barry Bonds is put in it. Until you can tell me how many pitchers that Barry Bonds hit home runs off of that were on steroids, then when you live that and you know how rampant it was, and how many guys that were taking it that were never in the Mitchell Report team photo, which I'm in, you just can't really judge. So when you talk about his career and what he did and how the Hall of Fame tells the story about baseball, and I just think it's a shame that maybe 100 years from now, when we're all dead and buried, that people might not know the story of Barry Bonds. So whatever you think about Barry, the story has to be told. If you go to the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. of American history, Like there's parts of our American history that aren't flattering. There's parts of like our history that aren't cool, but they tell the story in that museum of the history of the United States of America. So along those lines, I feel like the Hall of Fame has to tell the story regardless of what's going on. And I texted Barry today and he got right back to me. I said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I think it's complete BS." And that was my text. I'm being fully transparent here. And he texted me back. He said, "I'm blessed, bud." And I said, "You are." So yeah, I understand it. I wish they would have both got in, but I'm sticking to my guns in this, that he was the best player that I ever even was around playing against him. And then to be his teammate for a year and how well he treated me as his teammate when I heard that that could be the contrary, and how well he's treated my family and my son. And even to this day, I consider him a friend. It's not the Hall until he's in. I think it's terrible.
I mean, you know what? The counterpoint is that there are a number of Barry's artifacts in the Hall of Fame. You know, he is
like bones.
He is in there.
Like his toe bone is in there, and they dusted it off, and then they just put, "This is Barry Bonds' toe."
You know, it's bats and balls and gloves. FP. Hush. And I think it's still up. There was an exhibit about the steroid era, you know, and there's Ken Seiko stuff in there and Bash Brothers stuff and Barry Bonds stuff and all of that. And someday you and I probably should have a full pod just on the steroid era. You were in the middle of it. You're not going to name names and stuff, but you dealt with all of that as you've alluded to, and I'm glad you did. But I just feel like it's just I don't understand how the Hall and baseball in general sort of has approached the steroid era. You know, it's so long ago, and you're talking about some of the game's greats.
There's guys in there that did it.
Clemens too.
There's guys in the Hall that did it.
This is yeah. I mean, absolutely.
It's not the Vatican.
Absolutely.
It's not like you're. I mean,
I covered guys who were in the Hall who I'm just going to leave that right there.
Yes.
But Roger Clemens. I mean, we just keep mentioning Roger Clemens was one of the greatest pitchers of all times, and the greatest pitcher of his era. I mean, this is. Okay. Again, I'm probably not supposed to say quite so much since I'm on these committees, but yeah, there are new things in place, and it's kind of changed the complexion of what we're looking at. And I think we do know how the Hall feels about the steroids era and how they're going to deal with it. They've told us without actually saying so. So well, it's too bad. And hey. A note, FP, on the coaching staff. I did find out who the last two guys are today. I'm not sure exactly the roles. And then, as I said, they sort of said they're still trying to figure out some roles. But Shane Robinson and Hector Borg were both added to the staff. It hasn't been announced, but I was told those are the final two names. Both internal promotions, which is fantastic. I love it when guys from within the system are brought up. So fantastic. Looking forward to getting to know those guys. Kind of guess I don't know if it's a first base, third base situation, or if there's somebody else who's going to have different roles and they're going to figure those out. But I think those are the two names, and hopefully they will give us the full rundown on the coaching staff very soon. That would be great. I mean, I would like more news than that, frankly, tomorrow, but I'd take it.
Well, maybe we'll do an emergency pod if something big breaks, but I don't know those guys, so I'm not going to sit here and comment on them. I'd like to get to know them this season. I'm looking forward to getting to know everybody in the staff that Tony and Buster and Zach hire.
How are we doing on subscriptions these days? We, I think maybe should be telling the people to do some subscribing, right?
Yes. Subscribe to our podcast right now, or we don't like you. It's splash hit territory. Next goal is 3,000 subscribers. Click on this button, part of the Foul Territory Network. Come on. Let's go. This is the greatest podcast in the history of podcasts ever, So click on that button. And we will like you so much more. We like all the comments. Susan and I read the comments. We respond to the comments.
We're going to do a mailbag soon. Yeah, I think this week is going to be dedicated to winter meeting stuff, just because this is the week that's all anybody wants to talk about. But let's do a mailbag soon. Next week we'll tell the people how to get in touch with you, with me. You can do it on the YouTube comments. You can do it on my Twitter. You can do it on FP's Twitter. We would love to do some sort of mailbag thing because I think we both really like interacting with fans. Honestly, FP, I tell people this all the time. Like, do not discount fan comments or questions. I've gotten ideas from fan questions before. I've
Yes.
gotten story ideas. I've asked questions to team officials based on things that fans have asked me, and I thought like, that's a great question. I don't have all the answers. You definitely don't have all the answers. So I want to hear from you guys and maybe start up a little conversation and try to get that going a little bit frequently. Also, I won't be here all the time. I'm just kind of a regular contributor. So, FP, you can do like full mailbags sometimes if you want, because I'm sure you're going to get some good ones. You're used to that from the radio days anyway, but I love that idea.
Yeah, I get pissed off ideas from some of the comments too, so that's really cool. And I have a winter meeting with a beer here coming up shortly. That was a good show, Susan. Thanks a lot for taking time out. I know you have busy days there in Orlando. Maybe we'll do an emergency pod. We'll see. See what's going on. So thanks for your time tonight. That was fun.
My pleasure.
All right. Like I say on the way out every single time, I used to say it on my radio show on KMBR, swing hard in case you hit it on the Splash Hit podcast.